episode of Hidden Treasures. This episode features Kintavar Exploration, that's KTR on the Venture Exchange, headed up by CEO Kiril Mugerman. Right now, Allan Berry of the Allan Berry Reports and Kiril Mugerman.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me. It's Allan Berry Laboucan from the Allan Berry Reports and StockPulse. Today we have our second edition of our Hidden Treasures shows. I have with me Kiril Mugerman from, I hope I said your name properly, Kiril, from Kintavar, KTR on the Venture Exchange. Kintavar Exploration is the name of the company. Kiril, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks, Allan. Pleasure to be on the show. And yes, you got my name in one of its many versions.
Okay, good. Well, I like to get it as close as possible. So, Kiril, just to give you an idea how we run the show, I basically want to go into where you guys are, what you guys are doing, why, and that sort of stuff, and then we'll wrap it up later at talking about the plans going forward. So I'm going to give you a little rundown on where I'm coming from. I started watching Kintavar probably about 8 or 10 months ago. And what got my attention was that you guys were doing a lot of very thorough exploration work, exposing stuff at the surface, sampling it quite thoroughly. And what I was really waiting for to start covering you was when you started the drilling. Now, recently you've started a 5,000 meter program, and I read the other day, I think you're at about 3,900 meters finished so far. So let's go back to, how you've been sort of developing to get to the drill stage, and then let's talk about that going forward. So why don't you give us some color on your exploration efforts that led you to this drill program?
Sounds good. So I'll start with a little bit of history. So the property by itself was first discovered by Noranda in 1971. They were following up on marbles mineralized with copper, so they automatically thought skarn deposits. So they were running out of ore in one of their Quebec deposits in the Gaspé, and they came across this. They sent some geos. They did a couple of shallow holes, 100-foot holes, 15 holes total, and they said, it's low grade, skarn deposit, doesn't make, we don't like it, and walked away. I mean, this is 1971. We all know what copper price was back then and what grades you needed. So then Noranda came back in early 2000s. They did a bit more geophysics. They did AP, and because they were still going with the skarn model, they were looking for areas where you had lots of sulfides. IP picked out one area, and they said, okay, let's go there. And they came to one outcrop, and they said, oh, it's all pyrite and pyrrhotite, and they walked away. So then a company called, I'm drawing a blank here, André Gaumond's company, Virginia.
Oh, Virginia, okay.
So Virginia came there, I think 2002, 2003, or 2003, 2004. They were just doing a bit of surface work, and they're like, what is this that Noranda has been chasing and never drilled? And they said, yeah, some soil anomalies, but we are so worried, we are so much focused on our gold assets in the north, which ended up panning out. It was their big discovery. And one of their geos that was running that gold exploration program on their famous deposit in the north.
Eleanor, yes.
Exactly, Eleanor is Allan. So Allan is my VP of exploration here in Kintavar. He was fully trained by André Gaumond and Paul Archer. So that's why you see us doing a lot of this trenching and the science work behind it, because Allan has the exact same approach as Virginia had. Lots of background work that has to be done before you start plugging in holes, and that's how you get discoveries. I had very similar training in Goldfields, the South African company where I used to work as exploration geologist. So that's kind of the approach that we use. And Allan, just for the record, so you know, when he was working for Virginia for for André Gaumont. He was the guy that discovered the Roberto mineralization, which led to the discovery of the entire
Oh, yeah.
deposit.
Oh.
So they have a very good relationship, those two, and Andre is
Well,
very
actually, now
as
that
well.
you mentioned it, I remember now looking at your company when I first started looking at it, and I remember seeing that a Virginia mining guy was involved, and that got my attention as well because I do know Andre quite well, and I know him and his team as very thorough explorationists, and so and I can see that in your exploration efforts.
Correct. We have another person, Francis Chartrand, that joined us as a technical advisor earlier this year. He's another ex-Virginia guy that believes in this thorough work on the ground type approach. When he was with Virginia, we kind of brought him out of retirement to try and work with us a bit. So really, what happened with the project, when we got in there in 2017, think of it like this. Basically, we were the first guys to really come and bring an excavator to start digging trenches. Until then, people would do some soils. It would light up like a Christmas tree, and everybody's like, "Oh, there's something there," but all the outcrops are basically gneissic units. And as you know, Allan, your marbles are softer, so they weather down and they're always covered, and the gneissic units will stick out, and you sample them and there's nothing there. So nobody really brought any heavy machinery there until Kintavar came. And we started doing the first few trenches, and that's where we discovered Sherlock, and we were like, wow, this is amazing. And we start doing a bit more detailed work on that big trench, which was, I believe, close to 30 meters by 15 meters. And so we brought Michel Gauthier, which is another ex-Virginia guy. So yeah, you're picking up on the theme, I guess.
Yes, yes, I like
So,
the trend.
so Michel Gauthier helped Virginia a lot in the metamorphic conditions delineations and figuring out how the gold form and the roots and all that stuff. He's a metallurgenicist, professor from UQAM University who worked a lot with André Gaumont. So we brought him because Alain Caillé knows him very well. We brought him to advise us a little bit, and we started following the mineralization, and then we started seeing the mineralization literally is following the marble units, and even when it's folded, it's still within the unit, and you can see the mineralization being folded around non-mineralized units. So that was the first indications that we are not in the skarn environment, where mineralization is basically a cloud of fluid going through and precipitating. But geologically speaking as well, we are within the Granville, and Quebec, being well known for the gold mineralizations and gold deposits that we have in the Val d'Or and the James Bay, Abitibi, it's not in the Granville. It's all in much older terrains, which are much less deformed. The only thing that is in the Granville in Quebec are the iron ore deposits and the graphite deposits. And that's because Granville's seen huge amount of deformation. That deformation was both by pressure, by squeezing and folding rock, and as well by bringing high temperature, which metamorphosed the rocks. So because of this metamorphism, you could not identify any of the traditional rocks which are associated with stratiform copper deposits,
because they're all altered.
They're all altered due to metamorphism, correct? So if you, we had people that say, well, it's in the marble, must be a skarn. That's what you have in Quebec. You have some copper in the skarns, but and they always go based on the notion that stratiform copper deposits are usually much more in the sandy units. Well, the sandy units don't exist anymore. This oxide versus grayish unit, non-oxidized, none of those boundaries exist anymore. They have all been metamorphosed in granulate phases. And so So we were not afraid of the metamorphic conditions because we had Michel Gauthier on our side, who is extremely good in reconstructing the pre-metamorphic conditions based on what we are seeing, and he's done the thin section work for us to rebuild to the original constituents what were the rocks, and so that gave us a lot of confidence. And then we started drilling there. When we drilled based on the first few trenches, which are, as I said, they were big, but not as big as some of the recent trenches that we've done this summer. They gave us an indication that we are looking at tightly folded sub-vertical units. So basically marble horizons that got folded, and sometimes we'll drill through the same fold that got folded 3 or 4 times. So you're going through the same horizon, but on the other limb of the fold, and then back into the other limb, and back into the other limb, back into the other limb. So by the time you're done with your 120 meters hole, you just drill through the same fold several times.
Got it.
So that was the first interpretation. We got some really interesting good results from there. We had, I think the first discovery hole was 120 meters of 0.34% copper from surface. Then we had 130 meters of 0.31% copper. We had just under 100 meters of 0.4. We have the biggest hole, I believe, was 200.
Is there other metals associated with that copper?
Yes, so there is silver there. The silver grades are anywhere between 2 grams and 10 grams per ton. Now, it is a little bit low for stratiform copper deposits. Usually they are in the 30 grams to 100 grams per ton.
Okay.
But because they are sitting together in the same structure with chalcocite and bornite, they basically float together. So when you recover copper, you recover silver, and by the time you get your copper concentrate, your silver is at a high enough level that is payable for any smelter. So we are reporting silver as well, but yes, there will. That is one of the things when I will be quoting your drill results. I will never say, "Oh, okay," and silver of that much. But otherwise, silver is payable. So so that's how it all started. Then we raised $10 million in 2018 on the success of those results. I mean, it was the first time we had primary copper mineralization in Quebec in what I believe over 20 years, and we got the Quebec Pension Fund involved. They hold today, I believe, 14% of the company.
Not everybody that's listening to this show is aware of what kind of investors those funds are, but they're often just like an insider, if you will, that they're not buying it to for really investment purposes. They're more buying it so that you have the funding to go ahead and do exploration, and that's really what they're promoting.
Quebec has a lot of interest and in investing in its own local projects. When they see a good merit, they say, okay, we are going to take a position. We want to make sure you have the money. We want to see it progress. If it's a good project, we'll reinvest again. And they basically never sell until they say, okay, we think the project is not good anymore. Or if they have to get below the 10%. So they try and stay below the 10%, most of the Quebec institutions. In our case, we were the first company pre-resource estimate where they took a position more than 10%.
And that was SOQUIM.
No. This is the Quebec Pension Fund.
The pension fund. Okay.
Yeah, the CDP. So they invested. The Labor Fund invested. The People's Bank invested. So all those funds took a very large stake in the company. I believe today, by the time you look at all the private equity groups that hold the positions with us, plus a lot of the people from the region where we are, and we haven't really discussed it yet, but the local people in the region of Mont-Laurier, which is where we found this property. Again, as I said, we are outside of the traditional northern Quebec gold zones. We are really in a forestry region, and the people of Mont-Laurier hold together 25 to 30% of the company.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they are all private investors. They are all below 10%, and some of them hold 3, 4, 5% each. And they are big believers in developing their region because their region does not have mining, none at all. Well, actually, no, not none at all. There is a graphite mine back from the 60s, 70s that's still operational, and that's the only mine in the regions. All the Granville mines for iron ore are, all, as you know, they're all in the northern portion of Fairmont, Schefferville, all that. That is still the Granville. So
Farther north.
yes, exactly, yeah. So we started. We raised $10 million, and we started bringing many majors to the site, started showing them what it is. Everybody was very curious. Um, and from then and until now, and it's still continuing, it's an educational process to the investor, because when people see 120 meters of mineralization of 0.34% copper, they automatically think, oh, okay, it must be a porphyry deposit, which it is not. It is stratiform copper that got squished so badly that everything is basically folded. Now, this was the interpretation of 2017, 2018. In 2019, and you referred to that, we did a lot of trenching. So why did we go back to so much trenching after already completing 10,000 meters of drilling over the entire property? And just for
Because
the
you
record,
could strip back the dirt and the stuff and get bedrock and
we
take
could
some
get,
samples.
correct, we can get much more information from surface than just by drilling. So because if you look at the entire property, I mean, the actual sedimentary basin that we control 100% is today we are looking at what, approximately 15 kilometers long.
Wow, lots of room. Are there some comparables of deposits such as what you're talking about here, Kiril?
Not really. I mean, stratiform copper deposits, yes, but stratiform copper deposits in high-grade metamorphic granulite phases, absolutely no. And
Okay.
that's why it's very unique. And we had that discussion with one of the majors, and it's very interesting because the majors are now starting to look at how do you find copper deposits, but basically go in the non-traditional zones, and those non-traditional zones are high-grade metamorphic terrains. Those high-grade metamorphic terrains have not been explored because the rock that we are used to does not look the same way anymore. It's the same thing if I tell you go and look for a porphyry deposit which is 1 or 2 or 3 billion years old, you'll say, well, no, all the porphyries are young and we know how it looks like. Well, that's how we found Malartic. Malartic is now a porphyry, and Windfall in Quebec is a porphyry as well. But because they're of a totally different age and metamorphic conditions, they look different. And it took time for Cisco to demonstrate it with their success of Malartic. And I mean, look at what Cisco Metals is doing right now. They are looking at zinc in those high-grade metamorphic terrains. So what we've been doing, we said, okay, we are now going to go into trenching, because we had results of some drill holes which were very positive. We were very happy with it. And then we could do a step out and we are not getting the same thing. And we are like, that doesn't make sense. So that's where we started suspecting that our structural interpretation was not 100% correct. So what we said, okay, we'll wait. That's why we didn't drill last winter. We said in the summer we are going to trench as much as we can. So what we did is we did a few huge trenches, and when I mean huge, I think that one of the trenches is almost 100 meters long,
Wow.
by 50 meters wide.
Yeah, I think you've put that in some of your promotional material.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
we published a picture of from a drone where a geo's red vest can be seen from up above.
Yeah, got it. Okay.
So those trenches for the first time allowed us to really visualize the mineralization in 3D, and not just a small trench where it's just a little surface area. Literally, it's basically we exposed a big cliff, so it gave us
So you can see it from the side, not
correct.
just from the top. Got it?
And that's where we said, oh my God, those zones which we thought were subvertical, those folds, are
They're
actually
horizontal.
a small portion. Those folds, they appear here and there, and they appear as if from surface. If you're still looking from surface, you're subvertical, but really the entire mineralized units are all subhorizontal. So that's where, from a tight folding model, this has been converted, and again with the participation of
So
Michel.
it's kind of like layers of a cake. And
Correct.
are you seeing any zonation of the grade
No,
uh,
so what
from layer to layer?
so what those layers are thrust folds. Okay.
Okay.
So you're in a thrust fold, so thin skin tectonics basically. So as the basin was contracting, you had areas that just getting squished and jumping on top of each other. So the marble horizons would go jump off on top of each other and then keep squishing, and another horizon goes jumped, and that's why if you look at my maps and so
I'm on your presentation, by the way,
yeah,
your
so
corporate presentation.
go to slide 10. On slide 10, you have a map showing the zones of Sherlock where we did the trenching.
Got it.
So as you can see, the thrust fault,
The orange is where you did the trenching, I believe, right?
correct,
Okay.
exactly. So you see there's one trench which is roughly 150 meters long, but it's a skinny one. And then we have a big trench which is almost 100 meters long by 50 meters wide. So that's Sherlock 38.
Got it. Yep. It's right on the presentation, folks. I'd advise you to go to their website, look in the investor section, and you can find what Kiril is talking about here.
So those black lines with the little triangles pointing to the north, those are the thrust faults. So as you can see, we've now identified 4 thrust faults. So even if you had one horizon, which was mineralized, by the time you thrust fault them on top of each other, you make a sequence of 4 layers, 4 horizons sitting
so
on
that's a pretty major discovery for you guys to go from subvertical to more horizontal.
Correct. So what it means for us, well, first of all, volumes are easier to add up when everything is horizontal than vertical. Drilling wise, our drilling angle was completely wrong.
Okay.
So now all the drill holes that we drilled in November and December are all vertical.
And this is why people will learn why Andre and others are so thorough about their exploration efforts that can change things on a dime.
Oh, look, I know I have friends that we studied together, and they're working now for the majors, and those majors, they swear by trenching. A trench can answer 50 questions, while a drill hole will answer 1 question and pose another 50 questions.
You got it. Yeah.
So now the drilling of vertical holes explains why so because it's all stacked, you can easily with an angle hole go and drill underneath the stacks without hitting almost any mineralization. While where you're drilling vertical, you're always going to hit your mineralization or wherever your horizons are present.
Okay.
So if you look on our website, we have a summary of all the drill results from last year. And what was harder to explain with angled holes. So what's 120 meters of 0.34? But really, within this, you went through horizons of, let's say, you could have 30 meters of 0.6. And then as you drip deeper, you'd go through another like 20 meters of 0.6. And sometimes like it would be like 60 meters or 70 meters of 0.5. Like in the discovery hole, it was 67 meters of 0.46% copper, 3.5.
But this is ideally would be an open pit type of a situation.
It is 100% open pit. You would never even touch this as an underground because the mineralization starts literally from surface. You walk on it, you pick up anything that is a marble chunk that you'll pick up on surface will have some sort of crystals of bornite, chalcocite, or chalcopyrite. Not as much chalcopyrite, but I mean, you in some holes we drilled 50 meters of 0.4, 30 meters of 0.5, and it's all those horizons. Now that we are going to be drilling them horizontal, they're not going to be intermixed with the chunks in between which are less mineralized. So what we are trying to explain to the market, and it will be much easier with the grades coming out as of January, that from a geological mining model, those horizontal horizons, layers of marble, you'll sometimes, let's say if you're in the southern portion of your thrust faults, so where Sherlock 08 is on that map on slide 10.
Yeah.
So what you see there, you are literally starting from mineralization. When you move to the north, you're not starting from mineralization, you're starting from more gneissic units on top, and as you drill through your vertical hole, then you start hitting those horizons. And but on average, what we are seeing, and I guess you can go now, go on slide 9, so the slide just before it, you can see the full extent of Sherlock, the bottom portion of those marbles. We get marbles for 1 kilometer here.
Yeah.
From east to west, it's 1 kilometer long of marble mineralization by 400 meters. So that's and what we are trying to say is, from surface in the southern portion, mineralization starts right there. In the north, when we drilled last year, we got mineralization as deep as 160 meters from surface, so vertical. So all what we are doing is, I mean, we have our internal calculations, and you can roughly play with, based on the grades that we are presenting in our tables, summary table for drilling from 2017, 2018, you can get horizons of, on average, throughout this unit of 40 to 60 meters of, you can play with whatever grade you want, 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, of those real marble horizons. But in the horizontal mine, as an open pit, you'll never put in the mill a 20 meters of gneiss, which is not mineralized. It's easy, you just go and remove it. In a squished mine, basically in our original first model, it was harder because it was all
more dilution, and you'd have to process it all.
Correct, and that was the risk then, and now that risk is being eliminated. So I mean, look, you can play with your internal estimates of what's 1 kilometer by 400 meters with layers of 60 meters, 40 meters.
Wow, you add up tonnage real rapidly.
Correct. You'll get a lot of copper in there. So that's what we're trying to delineate right now and show with this Curin 5,000 meter drilling program. So 3,900 meters now went into this whole Sherlock area. Sherlock, Irene, which is the northern portion, the northern tip of this area. Sherlock 34, which is the one all the way to the west. Sherlock 38 is all the way to the east. So all those areas have now been tested with drilling with these vertical holes, and we slowly started infilling some. So now we stopped for the holidays. So when the guys come back in January, while we are still waiting for results, in the meantime, they are going to go to the elementary zone. So elementary is 1.5 kilometers north of Sherlock. So you can see it on
up in the box to the north.
Correct.
Got it. Where you got the same kind of rocks.
It's the exact same thing. I mean, we have the exact same kind of rocks all the way 15 kilometers to the north at Nasigan, because that's where the next big marble sequence comes out. But here, Sherlock to elementary is only 1.5 kilometers, which still we have not infilled. We still have to infill and process from surface by more trenching next summer. But in the meantime, elementary, we managed to demonstrate mineralization over 1.5 kilometers on surface. And the best trench was element 08, which gave us 14 meters at 0.93% copper. Almost a percent on surface.
Got it.
And it's all bornite and chalcocite. You won't find any crystals of chalcopyrite basically in there. And that's the beauty of it. I mean, when we did the metallurgy test work, everything flowed beautifully. We ran a few cycles of flotation. We got 59% copper concentrate on 79% recovery. So by the time we optimize it a little bit, we'll have a copper con of probably approximately 35% con, and recoveries will try and bring it towards 90%.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, and this, I'm not discussing any ore sorting. This ore sorting test work, we did our first bulk sample last summer. We sent it to Germany for test work, and slowly results are being provided to us. We're still waiting for official reports and results to tell us. But the idea for ore sorting is to take the transition zones. So whenever you are in between your marbles,
Right.
where you are in a interbedded zone of marble, sandstone, marble, sandstone, marble, sandstone, or let's say what originally was a calcareous limestone and sandstone, and today it's marble and gneiss. So in those areas, you want to run this through a sorter. You don't want to sort the units which are already running at 0.5, 0.6% copper. They are good. You want to only sort
Where you want to get rid of the bad stuff, keep the good stuff.
Correct. Yes.
Got it.
So last year when we were starting when we were just starting with the metallurgy, we said we weren't aware yet of the horizontal model. So we were saying, well, look, here's 120 meters. We want to sort them, but then by the time now the way we see it, we need even less sorting that we originally needed before, because with the vertical drilling, we are able to demonstrate the grade of the actual massive marble units is already good enough to go straight to the mill without having to be processed.
Perfect.
So,
so let's get into a little bit about the access. You've got a private road going right through all this places where you're doing the work.
It's a little bit more than just private access. So if you go on slide 7 of our presentation,
I'm there.
So we bought the outfeeder called Ferracheval last summer in August 2019. Now, not only that we have the private access, the private roads that came together with this, it's all basically logging roads and operational roads for hunting and fishing and all that stuff that those guys been developing over the years. But more, this group that developed this outfeeder even brought their own power line. If you zoom in on that slide 7, if you zoom in on the upper picture there, you see where the cars are parked. If you zoom in, you can actually see the power line.
Oh yeah, you can actually don't need to zoom in. Yeah. Wow.
So we have literally the power line, and this camp there we can fit almost 150 people.
Now that's really important for anyone looking at this as a potential mining operation, to have road access, power lines, helicopter pads. Even looks like you can get in there with do some fishing for your for lunch, and you've got sleeping accommodations. You're not looking at some remote sort of situation here.
No. So the fuel stations, everything is permitted. I mean, we use that camp right now. We rent it out to the forestry industry. So they lodge their people. We lodge some of the Hydro-Quebec employees, because we're literally 15 kilometers away from the major substation that's called Poste de la Vérendrye. So Hydro-Quebec has major operations there. They maintain the big, massive hauling road as well, together with the forestry industry. You can drive literally 80 kilometers an hour nonstop from Montreal to that place, and you'll be there in say 4.5 hours, maximum 5.
That's exceptional. You got a lot of infrastructure right there.
Correct. So that's why the little roads to get to the trenches and all that stuff, those are already little roads that we've added. But the main thing for me is to be able to get to that camp, to the Ferracheval, in an easy access. That's great. And so that's really what helps any future thinking of any future development. I know that because of that, my operating cost is going to be lower. You compare to you can put electric trucks on it if you want to. You're fully connected to the grids. Or if you want to have in general for your flotation plant, instead of running on diesel, you'll be running on hydropower. So your costs there automatically going lower for any processing. And
Right. So that for the investors out there, that has a big difference on the grade that you need to find to make money. Because
yes,
that's what the miners are going to be worried about. Let's. I'm going to try and wrap things up here a little bit, Carol. In summary, you guys got a very big footprint, large potential
yep,
on the exploration that you've done a very thorough exploration job of. You've got the infrastructure. You're drilling now. The most importantly, I think, is that you're drilling to prove up a new concept of the mineralization and what you're looking at.
correct, yeah.
So let's look forward a little bit, and you expect some drill results in January, and then more drilling. How do you see things going forward for the next 6 months or so?
Yes, so we'll start getting results as of January. That's pretty much the first objective. As of second week of January, we'll start drilling on the elementary zone. By the time the elementary zone drilling is finishing, we'll probably start getting some of those first results. And that's where a very good chance that we'll send the rig back to the Sherlock area to start doing some infilling. All that will be finalized already in the new year. Right now, our target is to hit that 5,000 meters. But I wouldn't be surprised if we go for more than 5,000 by adding more drill holes in the Sherlock area. So by the time I finish drilling, let's say sometime end of January, we'll be getting results throughout the entire first quarter. So January, February, March, and who knows, maybe even some drill results in April. By that
And
time,
you must be able to drill here pretty much year round, aren't you?
yes, you can
Okay.
drill year round. You are not in the swampy IBTB territory where you can drill mostly only in the winter. Here,
Yeah.
you can drill anytime you want. Obviously, you cannot drill from the lakes in the summer, but ground-wise, it's very stable, solid ground. You have very little swampy area that cannot be accessed in the summer.
Wow. So, how's the financing situation at the moment?
We are at over $4 million
Oh, wow. Lots of
in bank.
cash.
So we are good. We are financed. We don't have to run to the market. We are drilling, and hopefully with those drill results, we'll be able to secure a deal with a partner, which we hope to secure last year when the copper was hot. But copper pricing changed very fast in 2018 from well over $3 to around the 260 range. So that kind of changed the appetite for the majors to get involved into new projects. And
Well, I think with
yeah.
this new understanding, it could turn everything on a dime for you guys. And the share structure, how much stock is out, and what's the valuation these days?
So yeah, shares are trading at approximately 13 cents.
Yep.
We did have a weak year for this year, but again, that's considering that we had no drilling for a year.
And copper got soft on you. Yeah, it's all
Copper got soft,
understandable.
all that.
Yeah.
So exactly, yeah. So we have now a 90 million shares outstanding.
Okay.
Pretty much
So
most of the warrants at the 14 cent are either exercised or are about to expire already just now, so they're out of the money. So there will be basically no overhang there. Options, around 8 million options are outstanding,
so
and
you're looking at a little over 100 million valuation of about 13 million Canadian dollars these days.
that's fully diluted, yes.
Yeah, and
Not
you've got what, 4 million in cash, or
right, yes.
so.
And generating a bit of cash from operating that Farashval operation.
Good. Well, that's I'll tell you, it's hard. It's harder these days finding good copper plays, and I'm more bullish on the price of copper going forward than it's currently the price it's giving you. We're looking at a lot of places all over the world where there's issues with where copper's coming from, potential strikes, not enough exploration, not enough new mines being developed. And I think this is a bullish situation for copper going forward. And then there hasn't been a lot of copper focused explorers, especially one in a place like Quebec with all this infrastructure around. So I really think we've done a good job here, Kiril, of giving people an outline of what you guys are doing, what you're expecting over the next little while. And I wanted to thank you for your time. You've been very generous with it. And I highly recommend those that are looking for copper explorations in a wonderful jurisdiction like Quebec, with the infrastructure everywhere, size potential, lots of money for drilling, and a reasonable valuation. Kintavar is a good one for you to look at.
Excellent. Well, Allan, if ever you come to Quebec during the summer, just let us know. And now you or any of your listeners that are around the Quebec, Ontario, or even in the US area, it's easy for us to accommodate people to come and visit the site. You don't have to fly all the way up north to see it. You just have to come to our little fer à cheval, and the geo team will be more than happy to show you all the trenches and what is it that we are doing there. So anybody is more than welcome to contact me directly. I'm very open to that as well. But yeah, we'd like to see you there next summer.
Well, you might just find me up there. It looks like a wonderful place. I love Quebec and the people of Quebec. So you never know. You might find me up there one day, Kiril.
Excellent. Thank you very
All
much.
right. Thank you. And folks, as always, the show is for information purposes only. It's important for you to speak with your financial advisors and do your homework. But I'll close on this is a good one for you to check out. Go to their website at kintavar.com, and they've provided a lot of thorough, just like they do thorough exploration, they explain their story very thoroughly. So I invite you to check them out. On that note, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.